welcome to Good Grief, the podcast dedicated to demystifying and destigmatizing grief with compassion and humor. I'm Nikki. I'm an end-of-life doula and a grief coach in Columbus, Ohio. And today, we're going to be talking about our pets once again. I did an episode quite a while back, one of my earliest episodes, on pet loss and grief with losing your pet. It's something a lot of us know and a lot of us pet parents understand very truly and deeply. But today we're going to talk a little more about knowing when it's time to say goodbye. This is something I personally have struggled with, and this is something other people have come to me and told me they've struggled with as well, is, when you know your pet's getting older and they might have some health issues, but you're just not sure if now is the right time or if it's a good time or if you should be making that decision to have your pet put to sleep. And this, like I said, it's a hard one. A lot of us, I know myself with the pets I've had, I've second guessed myself a lot. There was one cat that even the vet said, not doing it would be inhumane. She was very, very, very sick. And there was just no real help of continuing to work with her. There was no cure. It was her kidneys were failing, and we could have continued to do tests and treatments that would have been thousands and thousands of dollars, and even the vet didn't recommend doing that. So when the vet, who's the one making money off you, is telling you it's probably not a great idea, that's a good sign right there. But especially with my cat, Yuna, who I talk about constantly because her loss was so hard on me, I knew it was time, and she told me it was time, but I second guessed every second of it up until the vet showed up. It was the last day, and I had moments of, should I call and cancel? Am I making the right decision? And this is a hard one. This is something I know a lot of people struggle with, and some people have realized that they may have let their pet go on a little too long or wondered if they were too hasty with their decision. So let's talk about it a little bit. Let's talk about when it's the right decision to say goodbye to your beloved pet. And just full, caveat CYA here. There's no right answer. Okay, I can't tell you if you check off these 6 boxes, then it's definitely time. Okay, there is no formula, there is no right, set of things to look for, but let's help you make this decision a little bit more informed and, a little easier. It's never easy. Who am I kidding? At some point, if you are a pet owner, there's a good chance that you're going to have to say goodbye, because unless you have a very young pet and you are very old, there's a good chance you're going to outlive your pet. Well, I mean, hey, there are tortoises out there. I know people with pet tortoises, and those things live forever. So, or a very long time anyway. But odds are pretty good. And we're kind of talking cats and dogs here, but this can apply to parakeets, birds, lizards, spiders, whatever your pet. I have no judgment. There are certain things I wouldn't have as a pet, but that's neither here nor there. So there's a lot of factors around the aging and death of our pet that's beyond our control. But we're blessed that ending their life can be something that is in our control. And I promise I'm not going to use this episode to go into my argument of why can't we do this for our family members, but that's neither here nor there. This is an option that we all have, okay? It's not always a cheap option, and I recognize cost is involved in this, but something to think about. Sometimes it's, offsetting the cost of maybe thousands of dollars of further treatments that might only extend their life by a few months. But one thing to keep in mind is that you are alleviating pain. You are ending unnecessary suffering for your pet this way. And if your pet is suffering, they may not always show it or tell you. Every pet's going to be a little different, but overall, most animals don't like to show when they're in pain, and that's instinctual. They show weakness, and that's when predators come, right? This is why a lot of times, especially cats, will disappear when they're really sick or when they're about to die. They'll just kind of wander off on their own, because showing that to any other creature that could be a predator is basically advertising, hey, come eat me, Not every pet is like that. Like my cat Yuna was very vocal about her, her problems. And I've had other cats too that they sought me out. They wanted my comfort. They wanted to be with me because they were in pain. So not all pets will hide that from you, but most will. It's just what's in their nature. So you might not know, obviously, that they're suffering, but if you really, really know your pet, you know. You know when they're not themselves. You know when something is wrong. You know when they're not quite behaving their normal. So if you think that it might be getting close to this time, ask yourself some questions. And you don't have to answer hastily. Really think about them. If you need to write stuff down, write it out. That always helps me. Talking it out helps me too. But is there an obvious terminal illness? Okay, and that's something you and your vet will discuss. Is there something happening that there is no hope or cure from? Okay. Is your pet in some type of pain that can't be managed? Like, I joke about my cat. She was like 90 years old from the time she was about 5. She was an old lady starting in her teenage years. She had a lot of old lady problems, and she did have a lot of pain. And I remember about 4 years before she died thinking, oh my gosh, this might be it, because she was limping so badly. And I took her to the vet and we had x-rays done, and she showed me the amount of arthritis in her legs was so extreme. I'm not a doctor, and I could see what her joints were doing. And plus they were all knotty and swollen, right? But they were able to manage her pain with medication. I was giving her gabapentin for the last 3 years of her life. Yeah, it was an expense, but it wasn't horribly expensive. But it improved her quality of life a lot. She still could get up and down the stairs a little, and that kind of declined. She wasn't going to be jumping up onto the top of the fridge, or she never did that anyway, but she wasn't going to be jumping high heights or anything anytime soon. But she could walk around without pain. She could still get up and down the stairs. But if there's some type of pain that can't be alleviated or can't be fixed, that's a consideration to take. Is there any type of treatment that would improve the quality of life of your pet? Or will that treatment simply just kind of maintain their current quality of life? There's a lot of treatments for different things for your pet, and who knows, maybe something might improve their quality of life. But if it's just maintaining and they don't have a good quality of life, that's something to keep in mind. Cost. Let's face it, veterinary care, I don't doubt that most vets genuinely care about animals, because I can't imagine doing that if you don't. But a lot of veterinary medicine, I'm just going to say it's a bit of a racket, right? They're getting charged insane amounts of money for so many things because it's not regulated very closely. So we all know that a lot of veterinary care can be incredibly expensive. Now, there are more and more places doing pet insurance, which is something I've looked into. It's never made sense for me at any point. It might one day, but there are insurances you can buy for your pet that will help with this. But if you don't have that, obviously cost is a factor. And some of these things, if you don't have a lot of money and you've got thousands of dollars you're paying for constant tests and treatments, that's just something to keep in mind, okay? Another thing to think about is your pet maintaining their own bodily functions. Now, I would say, and I could be way off base here, I'm just guessing, but most people probably don't enjoy having their furniture and their carpet covered in pet urine or poop, okay? I know I don't, and that was an issue I had with my current cat. When I brought him home before we got him fixed, he was marking a bit, and it was awful. And before I realized that my last cat was unable to get up and down the stairs, I didn't realize she'd been peeing in a corner for a while until I realized the carpet was wet. And it was awful. So I had to move a litter box upstairs for her. It was one of those things where I've had to clean up a lot of cat pee in my life. Let's just put it that way. I had a special needs cat for a while that peed everywhere. Nobody likes that. Some people are more tolerant of it than others, but overall, I would venture to guess that most people don't exactly enjoy having pet mess around their house. So if they're unable to maintain their functions and you can't control where they're going, then that's something else to think about, okay? But you know your pet better than anybody else will because you're with them every day. So you'll notice things like, are they still eating? Are they eating less? Are they having trouble eating? Do they look weird? Are they limping? Do they have a sore spot? Are they licking themselves in one spot a lot? So, those things that you will notice before anybody else will are things to think about. But the biggest question you can ask yourself, save the best for last here, the biggest question I want you to ask yourself, if this is something that you're thinking about, is if you are not interested in euthanasia and you are wanting to extend their life, are you doing it for them or are you doing it for yourself? And I don't mean that callously, but think about it. Really, really think about that. If extending their life is going to cause them longer pain and you just want them around more, that's just something to think about, okay? And I'm not blaming anybody of this, but that is something you just have to really decide is, are you keeping them around just for you? Other things you might want to think about, if you have a family, if you've got a spouse or partner or kids in the house, you might want to bring them into that discussion and see if you're all in agreement on what the next steps might be. Talk to your vet. What is your vet saying and what is your vet not saying that they are saying? You know what I mean? What are they implying? Because I've absolutely had vets that are like, well, we could try this, with that unsaid but in there, that maybe it's not the best course of action. So have that conversation with your vet and be honest. Don't be afraid to just ask them, look, is it time? Should I be thinking about putting my pet down? Hopefully they will be honest with you and give you the information you need to make that decision well. So you're not just jumping into it. I would hope that they would weigh out your options. Like, well, we could try this, this, and this, and they will feel much better and they might stick around a few more months. Or, hey, we could try this, but it's not going to do much. Talk to your vet. Let them help you make this decision. Don't be afraid, like I said, to write out a list. Even just start tracking what your pet is doing on a day-to-day basis. Like, okay, they're eating at this time. This is how much they eat. So you might notice, like, okay, how much did they eat yesterday? Let me look at the list. Okay, they were eating less today. Like, keep track of certain things to see if it helps you, notice things that are changing. Unless your pet is in some type of imminent danger or like actively dying from an injury or an illness, you don't have to make this decision right away. You can take your time and think about it a little bit. Now, let's say you've come to the decision that, yes, it is time. It's time for me to say goodbye to my pet. There's a couple things to think about from there. First of all, talk to your vet. If you have to schedule an appointment for that, make that appointment. Or if your vet does a home service, even better. I personally have used Lap of Love, and if you're in the US, I believe they're all over. They might be global. I'm not 100% sure. I'll link them in my description anyway, so you can check them out. It's an amazing organization of veterinarians that will come to your home to euthanize your pet, which was ideal for me with Yuna because she did not like going to the vet, and I couldn't bear the thought of taking her somewhere that was so traumatizing for her and something that was just a scary place for her to have her spend her last moments. I really wanted her last moments to be at home where she felt safe and happy, and I was able to do that with Lap of Love. So it's something to consider if your pet is very fearful of leaving the house, seeing if there's an option near you where somebody could come to your home to take care of this. Okay? So the other thing to think about, and I don't pass judgment, but I feel like this shouldn't even be a decision you're making, but I would highly recommend being present with your pet while they're being put down. I know a lot of people are like, no, I could never do that. I don't want to see it. I don't want to be near it. It is hard. And especially if there are kids involved, I'm not going to tell you whether or not to have your kids present because I don't know your family dynamics. But that's something to consider is, do you want your children present? I would say if they're under a certain age, maybe not. But if they're older, like teenager, they can probably process it a little bit better. But I've heard so many stories of vets saying that when somebody brings a pet in for euthanasia and they opt to leave the room, that their pet spends the whole time looking for their human. This is going to be a hard enough thing for you and for your pet as it is. The best gift you can give your pet is to be with them in those final moments. And it's hard. It is. But I've witnessed more than one euthanasia of a pet in my life. I've multiple, in fact. And it's not that traumatic, I promise. okay? For the most part, they should give them one shot that makes them real quiet and they kind of go to sleep, and then the next shot stops their heart. So it's not, unless they've done something very wrong or something goes wrong, it shouldn't be that difficult to watch. And what a blessing for your pet to be able to be with you in their final moments. I couldn't imagine not being present for Yuna's passing. And I specifically, when the vet came to our house, he asked where we wanted to be, and she was already on the couch. I said, let's just do it right here on the couch. And he said, I'll stand back here behind her so she's not looking at me. I said, I want to be on the floor in front of her. I want to be the last thing she sees. I'm going to get choked up. But I wanted that for her. I wanted her to be looking right at me because I was her comfort. She loved me. I was the one she came to when she was hurting, right? She and I were best friends. And I wanted her to be looking at me when she crossed over. And that was what we were able to do. I was sitting right in front of her, almost nose to nose. I was petting her the whole time. And it was a beautiful moment, and I'll never forget it. So please, please do everything in your power to be present if you're having your pet euthanized. It's huge for them, you guys. It's a gift. Okay. Now that I got myself all choked up and emotional, let's move on to the death deck. I don't know. I don't really have much else to say. Like I said, this isn't a decision you should make quickly. Take your time with it unless it's an urgent situation. Just take your time. Weigh out the thoughts. Talk to your vet. Have a conversation with somebody you trust. And yeah. Okay. So that is all I have for that. So then it is time for the death deck. Woo! All right, here we go. Shuffling up the cards. I dropped one. Actually, if I dropped one, I should probably read that one, huh? Okay. Oh my God. This is not appropriate for this episode, but I'm reading it. Here we go. If you had to choose one of these classic gruesome movie deaths, what would it be? Oh, Lord. Well, it is Halloween time, isn't it? A, Hitchcock's Psycho style in the shower. Oh my God, by a knife stabbing. I'm sorry, you guys. B, Jaws style, chewed up by a badass great white shark. Or C, Raiders of the Lost Ark style, face melted off by a holy ghost. Excuse my cat coming in while I'm reading that. Holy cannoli. I would say none of the above, but I guess if I had to pick one, I'd say B, Jaws. Getting chewed up by a... Oh, Lord. That's awful. Well, I make a joke all the time about I will very likely die by petting something that I should not. Like a bear or a wild cat. Okay, well, I apologize for that slightly gruesome card, but hey, it was nice to end on a somewhat lighter note. So that got to be kind of a heavy episode. Yeah, so thank you so much for tuning in. And as always, if you enjoy the show, please share it with your friends. Tell your friends about it. If you haven't already, please, I'm literally begging you right now, please rate and review my show on either, I think on Spotify, you can't really write a review, but you can at least give it stars. On Apple, you can, and that's better if you write a couple words out, even if you're just writing like 5 stars, Nikki's awesome, thanks. The more reviews, the more people see my show. So please, 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 please review my show and tell your friends about it. If you would like to support me, if you believe in what I do and you want to help me provide pro bono work to those who can't afford my services, you can support me on Patreon. Go to patreon.com/Nikki the Death Doula. You can support me there for as little as $1 a month. I've got 3 different tiers of service there, or you can give me a one-time donation. Anything would be helpful. I appreciate it. You will get twice weekly grief affirmations. You get access to my podcast a whole week early, which yay. And my interview shows, you'll get to see the videos with me and the person I'm interviewing. And you'll get my undying gratitude. You'll even get a shout out on the podcast. So, do that. That'd be swell. Okay. Thank you guys so much. You can find me if you want to reach out to me at nikkithedeathdoula.com. You can find me on Facebook, Instagram, and TikTok. Also, Nikki the Death Doula. So come find me and follow me there. And I'd like to hear your answer to the death deck questions. I love that. I like hearing from my listeners. It's very isolating sometimes, just me and this microphone. So I'd love to hear from you. All right, guys, thank you so much for tuning in. Have an amazing week. And remember, as always, your grief is yours. Your feelings are valid. Grief doesn't always have to suck.